A video of kidnapped nurse Louisa Akavi was released to authorities during ransom negotiations in 2014, according to the New York Times journalist who broke the story. The 63-year-old was abducted in October 2013 in the Syrian city of Idlib. The last reliable sighting of Louisa was in December last year. New York Times journalist Rukmini Callimachi says Islamic State initially demanded hundreds and thousands of dollars for Louisa before things went quiet.
Early on in 2014, there was an active negotiation for her release with ISIS and between ISIS and the Red Cross. So at that point, they got a proof of life of her. They got a video that showed her addressing her family. They were allowed to send questions, very personal questions that she correctly answered. And then the trail went cold in late 2014, and for 2015, there was really no sighting of her and no connection at all to her captors. Starting in 2016. And then really accelerating in 2017 and 2018, there were credible sightings of her. Initially, it was just a sighting of a woman that matched her description. And then later on, people who were escaping from ISIS-controlled areas came out and told the Red Cross, not just one, but multiple people, that they had seen her working as a nurse in ISIS-run hospitals and clinics in the towns of Mayadeen, Abu Kamal, and Raqqa in Syria.
So those areas are quite far apart. Have they been moving her around, do you think?
From what I can tell, the areas correspond to the shrinking shadow, if you will, of the caliphate. So initially, ISIS held enormous territory in both Iraq and Syria, and then Raqqa fell, and then Abu Kamal fell, and Mayadeen fell, and then Susa fell. And this seems to be her movement. So it seems that she's being moved as the group is losing territory. She was being moved into the ever smaller parcel of land that they were still holding.
And she's obviously a nurse and a midwife. What do you know of what work she's been doing?
What we are told by the Red Cross is that she was spotted in clinics working in a medical capacity, and we don't know more. We don't know if she's in the operating theater or if she's delivering babies. But this is a woman who was on her 17th Red Cross mission when she was kidnapped. She has served in numerous other war zones, in Chechnya, in Somalia, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in the Philippines, in the Solomon Islands. So she has an enormous amount of experience on the ground, and specifically dealing in conflict situations where you see horrific injuries. So obviously her skills are useful, and the hope is that the Islamic State saw utility in this and therefore kept her alive.
You talked about an active negotiation. What do you know about what demands were made for the return of Louisa? Because the Red Cross has been very clear that it does not pay ransom.
Yes. So what the Red Cross told us is that initially the captors asked for under €1 million. Then as time went on, the ransom suddenly spiraled to around €20 million, and then it fell back down to €5 million. I happen to know that the $5 million is the figure that ISIS was receiving for some of the European hostages who were benefiting from government policies that allowed their nations to pay ransoms for them. It's very difficult for people like Louisa and like the American and the British hostages to be in a situation where they're being held alongside hostages from countries that do pay, because what it means is that those people are able to get out and their life becomes ever more in peril as a result of the fact that they come from countries that hew to a strict no ransom policy.
We know she was obviously taken with 2 Syrian colleagues, but over the years there have been other Western hostages as well. Do you know whose paths she has crossed during this time?
What we know is that she was held at the same facility outside of Raqqa with around 23 other Western hostages. She was held in the same cell as Kayla Mueller, who was an American aid worker and who ISIS said was killed in an airstrike in 2015. And she was in the adjoining cell, so basically next door To the male hostages, including James Foley, including John Cantley, Peter Kassig, Stephen Sotloff, they were all held in the same place.
So the last time she was seen, the last reliable sighting, is in December, and there's obviously been a lot of fierce fighting and airstrikes. What do we know of her fate after December?
We know nothing after December, and I think that's why the Red Cross, after more than 5 years of imposing a blackout and really keeping a strict silence on this case, I believe that is why they're finally going public with her situation now. The fear is that the last territory has been lost. In the chaos that has ensued, she's been lost. And they're hoping that at this point, the public, including the people who are listening to this broadcast, can perhaps help find her.
You know a lot about IS, Islamic State. You've done a lot of research and investigations. What is your feeling about whether people will feel comfortable to provide information on the whereabouts of Louisa?
Well, there's an enormous amount of people that have come out of the last little turf that ISIS held in Syria. Right now in Al-Hol camp, which is the main camp where ISIS wives, children, supporters are being taken to, there are over 70,000 people. And these people are in a really terrible situation. That camp was built for, I believe, 7,000 people, so it's got 10 times more. Conditions are difficult. It's muddy. There's not enough tents. Children are dying. And so what I've noticed, I was there for 3 weeks in February, is people are so desperate to get out of this camp that I've noticed that they're offering information. They're trying to sidle up to officials and to others who could help them and say, hey, I know something about the Islamic State. Let me offer this. So perhaps there's a chance that people who have information will come forward.
That's New York Times journalist Rukmini Callimachi.